Yesterday in Siman Kuf Samech Aleph, how a person has to remove all intervening substances from his hands when he does Netilat Yadayim for the bread. So we gave an example yesterday of a ring. If a ring is, a lady is very meticulous to not use her ring while she makes dough. She doesn't let her ring get dirty, or so to a man. He's meticulous to remove the ring before he does dirty jobs. So that shows that this makes the ring an intervening substance in regards to washing hands for bread. So therefore, they have to remove the ring when they wash their hands for Netilat Yadayim for bread. But if the ring is something that they don't remove, they're not makpid, they're not meticulous to get it not dirty. Rather, they make dough with it on, and they change the oil with it on, and they get their hands dirty with it with the ring. So it shows that it's not considered. This makes an halacha that it's not considered chatzitza. It's not considered an intervening substance, and therefore they're allowed to wash the hands even without removing the ring. Okay, good. Seif Dalet. Shiur nitlat yadayim kol hayad al kaneh shel zroa. ויש אומרים עד מקום החיבור אצבעות לכף יד, ראוי לנהוג כדעת ראשון. מחלוקת. Says Shulchan Aruch, מחלוקת is an argument. How far up the hand does the washing of the hands have to be? Some say till the wrist. Some say till the knuckles. And says Shulchan Aruch, it's preferable, it's praiseworthy, it's proper to follow the first opinion, to wash your hands all the way till the wrist. Now we're going to see that since there's one opinion that says that till the knuckles, so some days of the year where we're not allowed to wash for pleasure, we're strict to follow that opinion, only till the knuckles, like Shabbat, Yom Kippur, and so on and so forth. But on a regular day, we said many times before, you should use a lot of water. A lot of water by Netilat Yadayim for bread, it represents shefa, represents blessing, parnasa. So therefore, you should use a lot of water, and you should just wash the entire hand till the wrist. What? Yeah. No, up until where the hand connects to the arm. So he says, a person who's makpid to wash hands till the wrist every time, it's good that he should say bli neder. Why? Because if you're strict for the stricter opinion, it can become a neder once you do it 3 times. So therefore, it's good to say bli neder and won't become, you won't need to have to use hataret nedarim later. Because maybe one time you'll be lenient with yourself and you'll use till the wrist because whatever you didn't have, you'll use till the fingers. And really, since you always did till the wrist, now it became like a neder to do till the wrist. So therefore, it's good to say bli neder. That way, you don't have this issue. Okay, Kuf Samech Bet. Says Shulchan Aruch, הנוטל צריך להגביה ידיו. דהיינו ראשי אצבעותיו למעלה. שלא יצאו מים חוץ לפרק וחזרו ויטמאו את הידיים. Says Shulchan Aruch, you got to raise your hands, at least your fingers, when you're doing Netilat Yadayim. In order that the water shouldn't drip. If your hands are down, the water shouldn't drip from your hand to your fingers and make your fingers tameh again. We're going to see what this means exactly. So first we have to give a couple introductions. Number one, that you should know that if you don't spill the revi'it of mayim at once on your hand, or a revi'it on each hand, so you're going to have to wash at least twice. Why? So what is the reason we wash hands? To remind the Kohanim that they have to eat their bread with purity. People's hands are busy, they touch a lot of things, and they might touch something that's tameh, and therefore they might make their bread, which is truma, tameh, and they're not allowed to do that. So to remind the Kohanim to wash their hands, to purify their hands, we also have to purify our hands before we eat bread, to remind the Kohanim. Now, how does washing the hands make your hands pure? So you should know that when you wash the hands, spill water on the hands the first time, so now you're purifying your hand. That water that's on your hand is tameh. Why? Because, so the water washed your hand, right? So a lot of water fell off, but some water stayed. And that water that touched your hand to wash your first time, that water that stayed on is still tameh. So now you have to wash again to remove even that water that stayed afterwards. So that requires a basic minimum of 2, right? And therefore you have to wash your hands again the second time. And now, because if you're not going to spill revi'it at once, technically if you spill revi'it at once, so then it's over, it's done. You don't have to spill 3 times. But since people don't always spill revi'it at once, so you're going to have to do it twice to remove that water that stayed from the first time. But now what happens? If that water that stayed there is tameh, right? and you're going to go and wash the second time to remove that water, if you don't raise your hands, what happens? The water that you went from the first time is going to drip down and make this hand tameh again, the fingers tameh again. So therefore, that's why he's saying you have to raise them up. But today, what do? We wash hands 3 times. A lot of people, they're machmir to wash hands 3 times. We're going to see why. But according to this, if you wash hands 3 times or you spill revi'it at once, so technically the raising of the hands is not necessary because you're not going to have this water dripping down, making your hands tameh again issue. But preferably we do it all the time because some situations it might lead to a problem, so it's better to do it all the time, to raise your hands after you wash the hands and make the bracha that way. Okay, good. There's those who are machmir that you raise your hand even if you wash till the wrist. If you wash only till the fingers, it makes sense how water could drip from the wrist, from the hand to the fingers, because the hand you didn't wash, only the fingers you washed. But even according to Ari, even if you wash till the wrist and there's nothing of your hand that's tameh, still, he says you still should raise your hands and raise the opposite of your head. According to the Kabbalah, when you wash your hands after doing it you have to raise them in front of your head, and you have to open your hands as if you're receiving something from a gift from Hashem, and you have to let the water drip down. We're going to see later, according to Kabbalah, you also have to rub your hands after you wash Netilat Yadayim, and then you raise them, you wash, and then you rub them, and then you raise them opposite of your face, and you make the bracha like this. Even though from Pshat, you don't have to raise your hands if you spilled water till the wrist and you use revi'it, but according to Kabbalah, the water dripping down represents Shefa coming down. Netilat Yadayim is very connected to Parnasah, so therefore that's why it's important to raise your hand like this, like you're receiving a bracha, like Poteach et Yadecha. And people are very machmir for Netilat Yadayim because of this, because it's connected to Parnasah. The more water you use, the more Parnasah you'll get. Okay, fine. This that we're talking about, raising the hands, it's after you wash the hands, before you make the bracha, you're supposed to raise your hands up and make Netilat Yadayim while your hands are raised, and afterwards you'll dry them. Okay, fine. It only applies when you're washing your hands with a kli. If you're dipping your hands at the mikveh, technically you don't have to do the raising of the hands, but according to Kabbalah, you always have to raise the hands. Okay. Good. Okay. נוטל ידיו שופך עליהם קצת מרביעית להסיר מהם הלכלוך, says Shulchan Aruch, וכל דבר שחוצץ, ואחר כך שופך עליהם פעם שנייה, וגם אלו המים הם טמאים, ואחר כך שופך עליהם פעם שלישית לטהר המים שעל גבי הידיים. ואם אין בידיים לכלוך לדבר חוצץ, שופך על שתי ידיו רהיט בבת אחת, ואין צריך מים שניים. Says Shulchan Aruch, why do we wash 3 times? Because first time, maybe your hands are dirty. Okay, back in the day, they didn't have sinks everywhere to wash the hands with soap. Maybe your hands really were dirty with dirt. So first time you pour is to wash off the dirt. Second time you pour is to purify. But there's still tameh water on your hands, so you need the third time to wash off that impure water. But technically, if your hands are clean, your hands are not dirty at all, and you could spill revi'it of water at once, so then technically it's enough to do 1 time. You don't have to do 3 times. But the minhag, again, I said, because we don't want to lead to confusion, minhag is to always do 3 times each hand, and that way, also according to Kabbalah, even if your hands are not dirty, you should always do 3 times because of the Kabbalistic significance. You'll see, if you see Sham Ashkenazim, they'll wash hands only 1 time. They'll spill water a lot at once, or they'll only do it twice. You should know they're also following Halacha. It's just Faradim, we follow the Arizal, and our minhag is to always do 3. So that's why we always do 3. But technically, it's enough if you spill 1 time on it and your hands weren't dirty. Okay, fine. נטל מצד ידו וחזר והוסיף ונטל נשאר מידו, הרי ידו טמאה כמו שהייתה. דאין נטילה לחצאין. Person spilled a little bit of water on a little bit of his hand, and then he spilled afterwards more water on the other part of the hand that he was supposed to wash. And say he washed half of his hand, and then afterwards he washed the other half of the hand. Says Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't work. There's no such thing as half washing. You have to spill the whole thing on the whole hand, and if you didn't spill on the whole hand, then it doesn't work. So that's why a lot of times the poskim say, when you're washing hands, you should turn your hand, because sometimes you wash, this part doesn't get wet, or some parts don't get wet, and Chas v'Shalom, then you touch your hands and make them tameh again, and you didn't accomplish Netilat Yadayim. So therefore, it's preferable that a person should turn his hand while he's washing to get both sides and to get the whole side. That way, he doesn't have this problem of washing half his hand, because washing half your hand does not work.
The couple times then.
Yeah, but a person has to know that you have to pour the water on the hand entirely. You can't pour on half the hand, like only these two fingers and these two fingers, no. Or only on this top and not on the other side. You have to make sure that both sides get wet and you wash the whole thing. If a person washed his hands on one hand and then afterwards he touched his other hand that he didn't wash yet, his washing does not work. The Yadayim didn't work. Why? Because if a person touches another hand that's tameh and it's wet, the tumah transfers. That's why we said when you wash hands in Yadayim for bread and your hands are a little bit wet, you shouldn't shake hands with somebody who didn't wash hands for bread yet, because now they're going to make your hands tameh again. So you defeated the whole purpose. That's why a person maybe should stick to this, bow like this when he's talking to people like at a restaurant. Yeah, when you're at a restaurant and everybody's washing hands and you see somebody first time, you shouldn't shake their hand with a wet hand, because then he's going to make you tameh, and then you just miss the whole purpose of Netilat Yadayim. Okay, we'll stop over here. Baruch Adonai Olam.